Welcome to the Audiobook Lovin Series, a month-long event celebrating the authors and narrators that bring romance stories to life. Listen along as Viviana, Enchantress of Books, interviews your favorite writers and voices, shares special guest posts, and stay tuned for some special information at the conclusion of the episode.
Hi, everyone. Today I have the pleasure of chatting with author Sandra Sigfusson. Welcome to the Audiobook Lovin. Sandra, how are you doing today?
I'm fantastic. Thank you. And I'm really glad to be here. This is going to be a lot of fun.
It is. Did I get your name right?
You did.
Yes. As I'm saying, I'm not going to think about it. I'm just going to go Sigfusson.
I really should have used my maiden name. It's much easier as a pen name, but I don't even know why I used my real name. I guess I didn't think I was going to be writing more than one book in my lifetime. So
it happens.
It
happens.
My maiden name is much easier. It's Nilsson.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
It happens. And again, it's just one of those things that even like when it comes down to fonts, S's are really pretty in some of the fonts.
Yes, they are.
Same thing with like the F that you can kind of do on there too. So it's a good name. We just have to make sure that we pronounce it correctly. That's why anybody should always ask when they're not sure. It's just a common courtesy that I think it should be done. But anyway.
Yeah, it can be a conversation starter too.
Exactly. Yes. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, how long you've been writing and how you got started?
Okay. So I am married for going on 37 years. I have two sons, adult sons. I have lots of pets in the house, always have pets. And I don't know what else to tell you. I'm really kind of boring, to be honest. So as far as writing, okay, so that actually started out as kind of a joke. Well, not a joke, but as a test to myself. I watched one of those romance movies on TV, one of the really corny ones. And I don't mind the corny ones because they all have their time and place. But this one was so bad. I could not believe somebody actually spent the money to produce it. And I said to myself, God, I could write better in my sleep. And then I thought, okay, smarty pants, do that. And in a previous lifetime, I was a secretary for a film production company. And so I was familiar with scripts. And I thought maybe I'll just write a movie script just for the fun of it. And it ended up being a almost 90,000 word novel. And then I didn't know what to do with it. And I thought, well, I don't know the first thing about being an author in the sense that I don't have an education in that direction. Mm-hmm. So I decided that I needed an editor just to be sure that if I was going to publish this, that it actually sounded like it was written by somebody who knew what the heck they were doing. And that was a great education because he ended up not only being just an editor, but he was also a great teacher. So my second book, was called Mr. Magnificent. And when that one came out, my editor said that he was quite happy with the quality of writing had gone so much better from the first novel to the second one, and that he was very pleased that I was learning quickly. And so that gave me, that positive feedback. And I thought, okay, fine, I'll do a third novel. And then it just spiraled from there. I just got so involved in it. It was fun. It was a way of creating a different world than you live in yourself. You could take dribs and drabs of your own life and people that you've met and sort of add them in an anecdotal ways, changing names and places, but, taking quirky things from people that and incorporating them into your characters in the book. And I think that's probably been the funnest part. It's almost like my own little secret. I know who these people are, but they won't know who they are, but they're in my books. And I think most authors will do that. They'll be inspired by somebody that they know, or something that's happened, and that'll be part of a story. So that's pretty much how things have gone. I started writing in not even quite 3 years ago. It was July of 2018 when I started to sit down and write that first book, Avalon. So it's gone fast and furious for me. The audiobook thing I started in late 2019 was when Ava and I got connected, And then I met her and a few of the other narrators at the, I can't remember what is the name of that? It was on that boat in
Queen Mary?
Los Angeles. The Queen Mary, yes. So I went to that one, and that's where I met quite a few people and got familiarized with the idea of doing book events and such. I haven't done one of those yet because by the time I decided to do something like that, the pandemic hit. So I've never been to one as a presenter. I've only ever been there as a guest.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, those are definitely coming back now that our safety measures and all that fun stuff continues to improve. So it'll be fun to have you be one of the signing authors at one of these upcoming events. So I think next year is when they're starting.
Yeah, I'm thinking. See, I have 2 booked for 2022, but I don't know if anything's going to happen for 2021 because I think Canada we're still making it very difficult for people to cross the border.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard to say. I mean, I had plans for this summer to head to New York and personally meet my editor, and just spend some time with him and his family. But that's still up in the air until I get my second shot and the borders open up a little easier.
Mm-hmm.
I'll have to wait until that all happens.
Yeah, and I think everybody's itching just to be able to hang out with like minds and things like that. I mean, we have all these book friends that understand when we go goo goo gaga over a character, or we fangirl over an author, or now a narrator, and it's there are people, and it's always fun to be able to connect with them in that aspect aside from social media.
Yeah.
It'll be fun. It'll be fun when that happens again.
Yeah.
So the primary genre that you write in is contemporary romance. What is it about that genre that you love so much?
Well, I've always considered myself a ridiculous romantic. I cry very easily over the dumbest things. And like I said, the romance films, I've loved them since I was very young. So when I started writing, it just made sense for me to write in that subject. And in previous things that I've participated in, I was a co-host for a podcast called Leave It to Beavers, which was a Canadian thing. And then we changed the name to Beaver Talk. And so it was a girlfriend of mine who started the podcast, and it was about dating and relationships. So her being single for 20 years and me being married for 20 years at that point, it was a good, the differences between our lives made for good commentary.
Mm-hmm.
She was a little on the raunchy side, very open-minded, and so I learned a lot from her as well. And we did some pretty stupid things, and some of it's on YouTube, unfortunately. But it was good fun. We had a great time, and so I kind of incorporated a little bit of what I learned from doing that podcast. I did it for 4 years, and so that really helped in my writing as well. Being more open-minded about the love scenes, and when I did have in my head that if I was going to write a love scene, that I wanted it to be not fading to black. I don't believe in fading to black, because there's all this buildup of emotions and conversations and the hints and all that stuff. And I want to see it actually happen. Right. Mm-hmm. So for me, it's important to write a full love scene, not just they kissed, he fondled her, and then, the next scene, they're eating dinner or something. I feel jilted when I read books that are written like that. And I know there's authors that's just not their scene to write love scenes. And that's fine. I know that ahead of time because I'm familiar with that author. But for me, I think that's really important. And so my books typically have at least 3 detailed sex scenes in them.
So romance.
Did I get off topic?
No,
I'm so notorious for getting off topic. Blah blah blah.
No,
blah.
but that's also. I mean, no, you're fine. I was trying to figure out how to phrase the next question because it's romance is an umbrella term. I mean, I see it as an umbrella term with all the subgenres underneath it. So we have paranormal, we have, historical, we have the contemporary romance, and then
Yes.
we have sci-fi and Victorian and so on and so forth. Since you're writing in contemporary, is there a subgenre that you have yet to write in that you're wanting to or curious about writing in?
No.
Mhm.
I love historical romance as far as reading and watching it in movies,
Mhm.
but I could never write it. I would fail epically at writing that. So I'll leave that to those who do it well. I like erotica. I like writing erotic romance. I like writing contemporary romance. I like young characters,
Mhm.
and middle-aged characters. I've never written anybody that's over 50. And I'd like to, but I guess that's something to look forward to at some point. But I think I would like to write, I don't know how to define it. I want to write something along the lines of, I'm trying to think of the movie title. And I do have these brain farts where my brain literally goes blank, and I can't think of people's names or book names, or but something truly romantic, something that's a long sweeping story that's not necessarily about the sex or anything, but it's about the romance, about how it builds, and have it in an epic background. A story that I'm trying to start writing at the moment. I already have the title and I know what it wants to happen. The backdrop is Ireland.
Oh.
And so that's the direction I want to go for something that's, I don't want to be campy. Let's put it that way. I don't want to ever go to the campy side
Mhm.
of romance. I love humor, but I don't think I'd be a good rom-com writer in that sense. Not like Lauren Blakely, for example, who's a wonderful rom-com writer. I'm more on the serious side,
Mhm.
but I do like to inject humor. So yeah, I'll just kind of stick in the lane I'm in because I don't think I can go very different from there. Maybe it's because I'm still a new writer in the sense that I've only been doing this for less than 3 years. Does that make sense?
No, totally. Yeah, I think
That
it
is a really
helps out.
roundabout way of explaining no.
Well, there's some people that will bust out with just literally like, nah, I haven't thought about it, or no, I like what I'm doing, or haven't even thought about it. But it's also, I mean, it's part of it is because you're new, but also you know what you're, what you like to do. That's the other thing. There's some authors that stick to dark romance and that's it, or some that do sci-fis or epic fantasies or time travel. They
Yeah,
do all these different things, and that's great because it just gives us a variety of authors to read and listen to. So we're fine with
yeah,
that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I've had this conversation with several authors in all different genres. Like a friend of mine is a horror writer, and he's been asked a number of times, well, why don't you write romance, or have you ever included romance in your stories? And he's like, well, I think romance kind of fits into almost every genre. You can throw in a romantic situation, but it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to write romance. And I certainly wouldn't want to write an entire book on romance because that's not my lane. So that's the beauty of romance writing, is that it can slide its way into all kinds of things, vampire books, into horror, into you know what I'm saying? Like there's no limits to where romance can slip in under any genre. So
Yeah, I've always found it fascinating when even like romantic suspense, and I'm going, y'all realize there's bullets flying right by you for you guys to be looking at each other so steamily and saying, it's coming up after we get out of this ditch hole, right?
Mr. and Mrs. Smith, for
Yeah.
example.
I love it because I know if I was in that boat, I would not be thinking. I'm like, I probably know in my back of my head, oh God, you're hot, but that would not be my priority right now when I'm getting shot at. But that's
Yes,
the whole
yes.
fantasy of it, and the whole, the suspending of disbelief and stuff like that. And it's cool that you guys as writers can come up with these different scenarios and different genres and even the tropes.
Yes.
that we have so many different tropes now, friends to lovers, enemies to lovers, office romance, the guy next door, blah, blah, blah. Do you have a favorite trope to write and maybe read and listen to?
That's a good question. I think I'm pretty open-minded. I think for me, the story and the characters are the most important part in a good story. I've found that if I'm buying audiobooks, I gravitate to people like Megan March, Vi Keeland, Penelope Ward. Oh God, who else is there? They're more serious writers.
Mm-hmm.
As far as we were talking about subgenres, right?
Yeah, the different tropes, because they have
Tropes. Yeah, that's the word. So I like enemies to lovers. I like one of my favorite books, I think, is written by Vi Keeland and Penelope Ward, and it was the one where the guy was a rock star and he reconnected with somebody that he was writing letters to. What was it called? The love letters or hate? No,
hate notes, hate letters.
Hate notes. I've read, yes. Oh God, what was it called? It was something like sexy letters or something. Anyways, and it was such a good story because they'd never met in person, but they were pen pals when they were children. And then somehow he decided he was going to try and find out what happened. Why did they stop writing to each other? And she obviously was not didn't know that he'd become this famous rock star. And so they kept writing back and forth, and then they finally meet. And it was just a really well thought out story. And maybe I connected to it because I had a lot of pen pals. I loved writing letters. I liked snail mail, I like getting cards. And I think there's a lost art in that. And so maybe that's why that story resonated with me so much. But unique situations. And I know I've had a lot of compliments about The Voice from 808 because it was different than anything else that was out there in the way that the two people met. And so, and that was spawned literally by that exact situation. I was driving in my car and my phone rang through the Bluetooth. I answered it, and this incredibly sexy voice, the guy should have been a narrator, asked for Susan or something. And I said, oh, I think you've got the wrong number. And he was so polite. And we actually chatted for a minute before we hung up. And I'm like, damn, I want that guy's phone number, right? So, and then that's kind of how that story developed. So I think people come across situations in their life, and those are how stories come about. They're just funny situations.
Yeah.
Most times you get a phone call, it's oh, sorry, wrong number. And they're like, okay, click, that's the end of it.
Yeah, I don't think that a lot of people are answering phone calls from people that they don't know thanks to caller ID. That definitely is an art that has been lost about being able to have those conversations with people that you have no freaking clue who they are on the other end, and potentially have that. Because I've had that happen like my younger years, when I was in the 90s in high school and stuff like that, and I had the corded phone up against the wall. You can go around the corner with the long ass cord. I'm
envisioning my sister-in-law who had that phone stuck in her ear permanently.
Yeah, exactly. And it was
around the house.
Yeah, and so when you would get those and you're like, hey, and they're like, hey, and then and then you just started talking and you're like, who are you calling again? That whole option now is very rare that continues to happen.
Yeah.
But that also
and the only reason I answered that call is because I was in the car. I couldn't see what the call number was. It just said call from and answer yes or no. And so I hit answer because I wasn't sure who it would be, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely, especially with the robocalls and the scam calls. God, those are rampant. It's terrible.
It is, and those are and they never sound that sexy. I mean,
no. Robocalls are not sexy. That's a definite guarantee.
Yeah, it's like, no, it doesn't do that. It's like
this is where the fault is. They should be hiring people like Sebastian York and Jacob Morgan and to do their phone calls.
Can you imagine
if those guys were phoning them, right? They'd be like, wow, just keep talking,
What do you want me to pay again? Sorry, what was that?
Yeah. How many iTunes cards am I sending you?
Yeah. I'm sorry I was late on that payment. I completely forgot. If it means you're
Yeah.
going to call me back again, I may forget again.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh, repeat.
Yep.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah. Was that was it the story of a love song? The one that you were talking about, the Viking and Penelope Ward? Might be the story of a love song.
Yeah, that
Or
it was
something.
something letters. It was
Oh,
either
okay.
sexy letters or
I know they have a
something like
hate
that.
letters. Yeah. Okay. We'll figure it out. Someone would tell us. Y'all
Yeah.
listening, just
Yeah.
tell us which book it is.
One of them is called Hate Notes.
Yeah.
I know, remember that one, but this one is love letters or something. It actually won an award, I believe. I think it won a Sobas.
Well, that's the never a complaint of us as listeners and readers. There's just so many books out there, you know. I mean, it's hard to keep up with, and sometimes I'm like, show me the cover, and then I'll remember if I read it or not.
Yeah, I know, and I do that too when I scroll through my Audible list of the books that I've either read or still waiting to read. And I look at them and I think, God, I don't even remember that book. I'm going to have to re-listen to it now, right? So yeah, it's easy. And some of these girls, I mean, let's face it, the audiobook listeners, especially in Romancelandia, they are ravenous.
Oh God,
They
yes.
go through books in a day, and it takes me 3 months to write it, and then another 3 months to find my narrators and get it recorded, and then at least another 2 months before it hits Audible. So it's a 7-8 month project for me to get an audiobook to market, and they gobble it up in 24 hours. And I'm just like, stop. I can't keep up. Right.
Yep.
So, yeah. I wish I could pump them out, once a month, but unfortunately I don't, even as a fast writer, I've been told I'm a fast writer because I write in 3 months. And I don't know how people, Lauren Blakely, she's another one that writes like super fast and just pumps out book after book after book. And I think that's wonderful. I at some point would love to be in her shoes.
Yeah, I think there's also a lot of processes that we don't get to see behind the scenes when it comes down to that writing the fast thing. Some of them,
Yes.
it sounds like they're writing fast, but this is like the 5th book that has yet to be published because there's 5 other books in front of it. And so from a timing perspective, it looks like they're publishing a lot. And then others are literally writing off the seat of their pants before the script needs to go to the production company. They just finished the last 10 words. And I'm going, ooh, no, that's just too much stress for me.
Yeah.
I
don't think I even mentioned it going to the editor either.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
The editor's going to take a month before he's satisfied with changes, adjustments,
and then checking it again. Right? So many different things that go into doing a book, and then again to go into audio, there's just a lot of different steps. And some people are really quick, others do not. The listeners that are vivacious, I am going to preface the following with: there is no hate. Everybody does things differently. I am not one to speed up my audio. I've noticed that a lot of the ones that are gobbling up are the ones that are speeding it up, and I'm going, okay, maybe not a 1.5 is okay, but they're going at like 2 or 3, and I'm going, how do you listen and speed up a Jacob Morgan or a Jason Clark? I mean, you kind of lose some of that what they're known for, but again, to each his own kind of a thing.
Yeah, I will listen at 1.0 90% of the time. If there is some recordings feel like they're recorded slow though.
Yes.
And so in those instances, I will go to 1.5 because then it will feel more natural to my ear. But generally, I don't speed up anything. I've done that to a couple of stories where I thought, okay, this is really boring, this section, so I'll speed it up just to get through it, but I don't want to miss what they're saying.
Yes.
But as a general rule, no, I keep my audio at 1.0 and I enjoy it, word for word and at the right speed. And,
yeah. Well, I mean, again, it goes back to not wanting to miss anything in the story, but also the voices. And there's very, I think there might be one or two that if they do the book by themselves, that I might want to be like, okay, I can speed this up a little bit. But it is true though. I think the bigger publishing houses will have them slow down on the reading, or the narrators do that on purpose just to kind of make sure things are enunciated correctly, and also I think they get paid a little differently. But anyways, some of the productions are done a little slower, and that's kind of some of the stuff that we've talked about with narrators when it comes down to that. So
Yes.
but that's also why it's great that we have so many different authors and narrators out there that we can finish yours and say, so when's the next one coming out? And then put that on our calendars, and then go on to listening to a Lauren Blakely or an Eva Harrison and things like that, and just continue to devour
Exactly.
them. So that's always a great thing. Yeah.
Yes.
You touched on it a little bit beforehand about, where you get your ideas for your books. And how situations that sometimes happen and just goes, ooh, that's a good idea. When that doesn't happen, how do you go about it? Or is it that's exactly how it always happens for you?
Something will spark my interest. I quite often have 3 books going at the same time, because I'll be in the middle of writing one book and then an idea will come to me, and I'll start the first chapter of that idea, set it aside, go back to my other novel that I'm focusing on, and then another idea will pop up, and then I'll have 3 books going. But I don't want to lose the idea, so I'll write that first chapter just to get my foot in the door, and then I can embellish on it when I'm ready to attack. Speak, Sandra, to attack that next project, right? So, yeah. So like that one I was telling you about, The Irishman's Promise, the one that's focused in with the Irish background as the backdrop, rather. So that one, that is actually spawned by someone I know who is Irish, and just conversations I've had with them. So sometimes the idea is just so simple, just basic, and other times it's far more interesting, like the phone call. Right.
Yeah. So you've mentioned a few times how, it's based, the idea was sparked by something or someone saying something, or that the characters sometimes have little nuances from people that do these individuals know that you are an author, and have they ever picked up and said, really, Sandra, this?
Well, the funny thing is that my first 2 novels, my nieces read, and so they didn't pick up on anybody that they related to in the stories, even though I typically base my characters off at least somebody that I know or somebody that I've met that stuck out in my head character wise. But they thought that every sex scene in the book was a reiteration of my own sex life with my husband. And I'm like, no, are you kidding me? Like, why would I write about my own personal sex life in my books? But this is what they thought. So I found that like incredibly amusing.
Well, I think a lot of listeners / readers think that when it comes down to it, I'm like, they have that moment of, I wonder how much of this is an actual experience.
Yes. So some of the, like I said, the characters we all pick from things we know, what we've seen, what we've heard, or even a character on a commercial on television might spawn an idea. So it's just what you're surrounded with and what you know. But absolutely, certainly, I will never put my own personal stuff in my books.
Like your nieces.
But I just killed myself laughing when I heard them say that. And like, yeah, nope.
Because I
some shit just doesn't belong in a book. I'm sorry.
Yeah, those are those fun moments that sometimes just happens, and you're going, nah, I did not expect that one. Okay.
Yeah, and that was pretty funny.
Yeah. So there's all these different scenes in a book, whether it's the first time that they meet, the first time there's this the angst between each other, or the chemistry, and of course the sex scenes that you've talked about a little bit. What type of scene do you love to write in your books?
I do prefer to write the sex scenes. I do. That's my favorite part of the book.
Okay. That's usually not the case with authors.
Really?
Yeah.
No, I actually spend a great deal of time writing those specific sections. I find the sex scenes such an important part of my books that I do spend a lot more time focusing on how realistic I can make it. And I've been told that that I do a pretty good job of it. So that makes me happy because it is important to me. So I must be doing something right in that respect. I know everybody looks at sex in a different way, has had different sexual experiences, and might think, oh, that's not possible, or why would they have done that? But I think we all do that with every book. We hear something in it and think, oh, that doesn't seem logical to me, but whatever, that's the way the author saw it. So you don't criticize them for it. It just maybe doesn't resonate with you personally.
Yeah. Or the opposite. You're going, that sounds like a good idea.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things in my sex scenes that I would like to try. I haven't gotten around to it yet because I'm too busy writing or marketing or wasting time on Twitter and TikTok and
Oh yeah, no, I get it. It's one of those things where I know a lot of people are like highlight and then give it to their significant other, their partners, and they're like, read it, memorize it later tonight. And so, yeah, that's one of the many perks about reading romance are the positivity that when it comes down to, sex and the whole concept is no longer taboo. So that's good.
Yeah. When I was younger, say 18 to say 25, I did read a lot of erotica. I don't know why, but I did. And then sometimes I would read it to my husband, and that would be a wonderful situation. You'd both be aroused and it would turn into a great evening. But I don't know, some people say, well, it's not good erotica unless you actually walk away aroused. And I think, well, yes and no. I mean, if you're reading it because you want to get aroused, then sure, you're going to want something that's really salty. But then there's erotica that is very subtle, has a real deep level of romance to it. And that can be, that to me, that's beautiful writing if you can do that. Right?
Yes, it doesn't have to be all up in your face. There's a way to do it with the
I don't need to hear about how long his cock is, or the exact movements of her lips over his cock in order to be satisfied with this being the sex scene. That to me is a much deeper level of erotica than adding erotica scenes to a romance novel. We get the picture so far in our head, and we only need to go so far in that respect. Then there's true erotica, which goes that next step over. So I think a lot of people don't know how to define that, and there is a very fine line between it. Some authors do go that level, and the readers love it, but most authors, I think, know where that line is. And if you're going to say contemporary romance with erotica scenes, you're not going to get the exact blow by blow.
Right.
Yeah.
So on the flip side, what type of scene is especially difficult for you to write?
I don't know. I've never really been stumped so much. I guess trying to write in male perspective is a bit challenging, but I've done an awful lot of it because my stories are quite often told in duet. So I don't know. If I feel like I'm stuck on something, then I research it. Like if I don't know anything about how to draw blood from an arm, then I will find out from a friend of mine who's a nurse. That sort of thing. So I don't struggle in that way because I'm willing to ask the questions and get the answers I need. I don't know. I don't know how to answer that question because I don't think I've ever found anything truly difficult to write.
That's good though.
Maybe I haven't stretched myself enough to get to that point. That's possible.
Yeah, I mean, that could be it too, but also sometimes people go in a place for a character that they didn't realize the story was taking them there. And then they're going, ooh, how do I get out of this? Or how do I relay the message? Because it may be something that's a little bit more sensitive topic.
Yes.
And so that's where sometimes when books are like that might be a little bit more difficult versus, something like a sex scene. But for many authors, they will write insert sex here and then continue with their story because they're going to use that, because it's for them that's difficult. So we all have our different things and that's fine. And that's just how we, because we're human. What made you want to release your titles in audio?
Sebastian York and Andy Arndt.
It's all their fault.
That's my answer. They were the first voices I ever heard in audiobook. and I was instantly in love, and I bought everything that had their names on them. Before I realized that there were other narrators, because then there'd be like a multicast in one of the books.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm like, oh, that's a cool voice too. Oh, I'm going to find out who he is, and then, or who she is, and start picking their names. So that's kind of how that started. It was, finding a love for audiobooks as a personal thing. Prior to that, I was just a regular, book in hand reader. So, yeah, and it's a lot of fun. And I like the idea of, because I've got an experience in past with working in recording studios and with, film production companies. I like the idea of my stories being brought to life by somebody else's voice. And so that's, I guess, part two of that situation.
Mm-hmm. You know that a lot of times that's something that is said about the narrators bringing the story to life. I also see that sometimes because I started off with more reading. I think right now I'm only like, I think I have like 100% of the literature I do is now audiobooks. But I would devour the books, and then sometimes because I was devouring them, there's some things that I may have missed that may not have been huge, as far as plot, twists or something like that. But still, to be able to listen to the book and say, "Oh yeah, that's what that was."
Right.
So that's really cool.
Very true.
Yeah. And that brings that extra dimension, and just, especially when you have the right narrators doing it, it's just perfect. And
yeah, and if you've read a paperback and then you hear the audiobook, and I know some people do the whisper sync thing where they're looking at it through their iPads or whatever, and reading along while they're listening to the narrators, that's a whole different thing. And I think when you read a book first, you have in your head what you think they sound like,
mm-hmm.
and then you have the narrated version, and you're like, oh, okay, now this is a whole different life, because you already had in your head what you thought that person might sound like, and then you actually have somebody reading that role. And I think it brings that story back to life in a different way. So that's kind of fun too. I've done that a couple of times.
Yeah, no, definitely. And then you end up getting into this, what we call like the audiobook rabbit hole, where you start off with Sebastian York and Andy Arndt, and then you realize that Andy has done books with other narrators, and then look, there's Jason Clark, and Jason Clark, kind of start bouncing. And,
exactly.
And then so like, oh, look, it's Sebastian with Emma Wilder, and you jump again and all that fun stuff. And that's how you discover new ones and new authors. And it's a nice hole from a rabbit perspective.
It's a nice warm fuzzy hole.
That's as soon as I said it, I'm going, oh boy.
I went down there with you, so yes.
I love it. It's what I love about you. Yeah, that was a quick wit. As soon as I said it, I'm going, high five. There she is. Okay. But of course, I mean, we love romance. We're going to have, I'm the friend that can make anything into a sexual innuendo. So that was going to be appropriate.
Yes, shake my hand. Yes. Cyber shake. Here we go.
Yep. Thank you. So when it comes down to, these are your books, these are your babies. You wrote them, you know them at the back of your hand, you know how they sound and everything. What does your casting process look like to get the right voices for these characters to come to life?
I think after you do your first couple of audiobooks, you have a process, and I think Lauren Blakely has touched on this before, where they have in their head while they're writing the voice of the narrator that they would like to read the book, and so I've done that. So quite often, like the book that's coming out that I just released on paperback and ebook, but it's coming in audio this summer, and that's From Bridges to Breakdowns. And I did write that with Jacob Morgan in mind as the main character. I just heard him saying the words of this, young roadie and his journey through the book. So I was very, very happy when he agreed to be that voice. So it came together quite nicely, but it's not always the case, right? You can write who you think is going to narrate it and find out that they're just too busy, or they don't think it's a project that they want to get involved in. And that's fine. It's all up to them, right? Yeah. All you can do is ask.
Exactly. But I also think sometimes too is that there's there are certain things about the narrator's voices that we love. Like for Emma Wilder, she has this silky huskiness to her that it's almost like a 1940s, what we think of this, the sexy icon movie, and she can still turn around and do the little girl's voice from a character's perspective. And then we have the deeper timbers of like Sebastian York. And we can always say, well, what do you like about that, voice of that narrator? And we can then say, okay, well, these other narrators have a similar,
Yes.
cadence or stuff like that. So that's very helpful too. When I'm casting, is having that conversation with the author saying, well, why Sebastian York?
Yeah.
Or why Jacob Morgan, or why Jason Clarke, or, like I said, Andy and stuff like that. And it's when it comes down to one of those characteristics about their voices, then we can say, okay, well, these other narrators also fit those characteristics and are also phenomenal. So
Yes.
we'll go with one of them.
Yeah, well, and see, now this is how Jason Clarke ended up being the snotty little Brit in creative director. Is that originally in my head, I had, oh God, my mind has gone blank again. Shane East. I had Shane East in my head while I was writing that character. And so Shane to read for it. And because it was a duet, and this was in the middle of the pandemic thing where nobody was allowed to do anything, he said he preferred to be in the studio with the other person when he was doing duet. And so for that reason, he was going to turn it down. And I said, that's fine, fair enough. I get that, totally makes sense. Then I ended up approaching Jason Clarke, and he gave me a sample of his Brit accent. And I went, well, if you want to do it, buddy, it's sold, because that's absolutely fantastic. I can totally hear you as this character. So, sometimes it doesn't work out the way you think it does. You think it's going to, but it turns out better than you ever imagined. And in that instance, that's what happened with Jason Clarke.
Yeah. No, Jason has a phenomenal British accent.
Yeah, he's got a great range.
Yes.
Sometimes you don't know until you ask them, well, can you do this? And they're like, oh yeah, sure. And they send you stuff and you're like, holy crap, that's amazing.
Yeah, I'm like, whoa, I did not know you had that in your pocket. The fuck?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like finding out that certain narrators can sing.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we all know Jacob Morgan can sing.
Yep. Jason Clarke too.
Yes, exactly. And now I've got another narrator that I've got for this upcoming book, and there is a song in there that I've written. I just threw the question out, can he sing? And she's like, Aaron Spencer, who is producing this one for me, she checked in with him, and she said, yep, he's been in a grunge rock band and so on and so forth. And I'm like, cool, okay, great. So I've got my singer too, which is fantastic. But you don't know until you ask, right?
Yep. Nope. It's definitely something I've learned, is to ask the questions, whether it's about a discount or changing something on a meal or stuff like that. But just because you never know until you ask, and that's
yes.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So we have more books coming out with songs in them. I like it when they do that.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. So I believe that one of your upcoming releases in June is a re-release of Rain on a Tin Roof.
That's correct. Yeah.
That is being re-released in duet style this time around. And you've hired a newcomer narrator by the name of Dean Anderson.
Yes, a fellow Canadian too. Yes.
Yeah. What made you decide to go redo the audio and have it in this style, as far as the storyline goes?
Yeah, so Ava Lucas did the original on that, and she did an amazing job. I was so happy with it. But it ended up being kind of a sleeper because it was my very first audiobook. So, and I thought, for the people that did listen to it, they had good things to say about it. And I thought, okay, so if I change it so that there is a duet situation with this, which is kind of the trend right now, I'm thinking, okay, well, if I'm going to bend into a trend, and I've already spent a fair chunk of money producing that as an audiobook, if I spend a little more and put in a male voice, and I can get a voice that in my mind sounds like Luke, then I'll do it. Why not? It's already produced. I just need to switch out. Ava's doing the male voice with Dean Anderson. And so yeah, I'm just waiting on the final files from Dane, and then I'll put that sucker together and we'll re-release it. And he sounds amazing. He totally nailed Luke, in my opinion. And I'm very, very excited. to re-release it. So I think that's the reason why I did that, is because it being my first audiobook, nobody knew me from Adam. So it was a hard sell.
Yeah.
Just like anything, when you do something brand new, you're a hard sell because you don't have a fan base. And so for that reason, and because the duet thing is very popular right now, it just made sense.
What made you go to cast Dane Anderson on that, though, out of all the narrators that are out there?
Well, actually, I'd heard him a couple of times on your podcasts. So that, for that reason, I thought, well, maybe I'll approach him. And I like the idea of hiring a Canadian because, why not? Everybody else I've hired is an American, and I thought it'd be nice to support somebody Canadian for once. So I'll just throw this at him and see if he's interested. And if the audio comes back good, then Bob's your uncle. So it just fit together like a glove. He sent me the sample and I fell in love instantly. And so he's happy to be working for a Canadian author, and I'm happy to be working with a Canadian narrator.
They do exist.
So, they do. There's not very many of them, but they're out there.
Yeah. Well, it's like with anything that's working from home situation, or that you have the ability to go to an office, or in this case, a studio, and now with social media, before we had no idea that we had offices in different states and not just the headquarters, or that we have narrators that are of American background, but they live in the UK and vice versa. So it's like, it's a huge, awesome, connectivity that we have that works out. So yes, I'm looking forward to that. I know I've heard a lot of good things in general about the book, and I'm just, very, just to hear it differently is going to be fun too, because, like you said, you hear it one way and you're going, and you go, ooh, okay. So that's going to be fun.
Yeah, it's an Insta romance. And I know some people just don't care for Insta romance, but this one, in my opinion, it works. I could see myself being Virginia. To be quite honest, I think I am Virginia. I think I wrote myself. That book is about me as a person. I think I am Virginia. So, which is funny. And I wrote that book, I kid you not, in 12 days.
Wow.
I couldn't believe it fell out of me. And I think that part of the reason is because Virginia is me, and it was so easy to write her. And then I just imagined what my favorite cowboy would look like and how he would react. And then I actually had to do some research on bull riding and raising cattle and stuff as well, which was new information for me. But I also love rodeos. So that was kind of where that came from. For years prior to being in the business of writing, I was a photographer, and I love action, sports action. And I used to go to the rodeos to photograph the bucking horses and barrel racing and things like that. So it kind of fit all together,
Yeah. You've been posting a lot more of your photography online on your Twitter account and on your Instagram.
Those are all just cell phone shots. I haven't brought out my real camera in months.
Do not sell yourself short, okay? There's some people that don't even know how to access the camera on a cell phone, okay? Let alone take a photo. I mean, I know there are apps and everything, but don't sell yourself short. The ones that I've seen have been great. Yeah, can't tell it's been done. I mean, they've done phenomenal jobs on the cameras in general, but it's still an end user thing. The camera or the phone can be the perfect quality, and you can still suck at taking a photo if the photographer doesn't know what they're doing. So do not sell yourself short.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, I love photography. It's one of those things where, when you capture a moment in time and it's just the perfect shot, and it's not the perfect shot because the lighting was great or there's no greenness. It's just that moment that you've just captured, and it's like, what were they thinking, or their thoughts might be on their face and things like that. Yeah, it's
I if I'm shooting people, I like to use a long lens. And I like to be sort of like the paparazzi, hiding in the bushes and capturing people in candid moments. Those are my favorite pictures, like at weddings.
Yes.
I don't want to be the main photographer. And I've been asked many times, and I have done it many times for friends and family, but I prefer to be the second shooter, hiding in the bushes in my fancy outfit, my high heels with the long lens, and just capturing the bride and the groom, or the kids, or the parents, that sort of thing. Dumb things like two people sharing a cigarette.
Mhm.
or somebody pouring somebody else a drink, or just two people crouching down beside each other having a quiet little chat. um, it sounds like stupid situations, but when you capture them in the right moment, those are my favorite images. So, and then with nature photography, I love motion. So waves, creeks, rivers, that sort of thing. Like if someone said to me, I've got a week to live, I'd be flying to Hawaii, laying on the beach, and be photographing waves and surfers for the last week of my life. That's what I would do, because I love that kind of photography so much.
Yeah, no, it's fun. I took a couple of photography classes in college and always wanted to, and wanting to get back to, because on my bucket list is to learn how to do those, develop your own film in a dark room.
Yeah,
So
my husband did that, and he's got as much artism in his pinky finger. Like he's not an artistic person on any level, and yet he's done that in high school, and I never did any of that. I picked up a camera when I was about 18 or 19 years old, because my dad used to like to take photographs.
mm-hmm.
And that's I just kind of did that for fun, but I never developed my own film, and I regret that I don't know how to do that.
Yep, that's why I love another reason why I love the world that we live in is that we're able to do that now, and a lot of things are more accessible. We can watch a YouTube video.
Yeah.
Similar how I did, like, so hey, I want to do a podcast. What equipment do I need?
Yeah.
It's a lot easier for us to do, but it's those moments that you were talking about, those were always been my favorites to see also as the viewer of the photography, is to catch those moments, and then you're wondering, like, what are they thinking, or what are they doing, or what emotions are going through their heads. And
yeah, so what you're doing is you're telling a story through images.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
And those are always fun too. I'm sure one day you'll grab a photo and you're going, ooh, that would make a good story. The hero is with a photographer, and he's on the lens with like a paparazzi, and the heroine just comes up to him and says, what are you doing?
Yeah. Maybe I should write a story about a surfer.
Or that too. Yeah. I mean,
a surfer from Hawaii or Australia or something.
Yeah. I mean, and if you need to get better, I mean, I know we have the internet and stuff like that, but if you want more in-depth knowledge and as to what that would be like in those feelings, it's always called a trip, and you can totally expense that as product knowledge and work.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, it's very easy to research what you need to know now. I imagine it was far more difficult, 40 years ago for authors to get the actual research they needed, unless they interviewed people that were in those professions.
Yeah. But also too, I mean, even though we have it as easy accessible, there's just so much information out there that it's always a little hard to sometimes to figure out which one is true or not. And it's just different to put into words what the sand in one of the beaches on Hawaii feel like versus the description in a Wikipedia that says it's grainy, No
Yes.
shit, Sherlock. Yes, it's sand. I know it's grainy.
Yeah. All I know is the stuff that's in Hawaii is really hard to get off once it's stuck in your skin.
We'll talk about that off air as to exactly how you know that, Sandra.
Yeah, rolling in the surf naked. Yeah, that's what I've been doing. Beached whale.
Oh no. Oh, be good. So when you're not working, that brings me to the next one. What do you do for fun?
What do I do for fun? Well, photography, I guess, would be my second passion. I just reading books and watching movies. Those are my favorite things to do in my spare time. Yeah, and if I'm going to go outside, then anytime I go for a walk, I will always have my camera with me, because you just never know what you're going to find. I mean, these little flower, sun peeking through the trees or something. I'm pretty basic. I'm not very exciting, unfortunately.
Jeez, I'd like to hang out with you and just have one of those walks and say, hey, do you see that leaf?
So yeah, no, and just birds, like a bird you'd never seen before, and you're like, oh my God,
Yeah. If you could have any animal as a pet, what would it be and why?
Puffin. They're just so damn cute. I've never seen a puffin in with my own eyes, other than in books and videos, until I went to Iceland. My husband is Icelandic. My husband and I went to Iceland in 2018, and I saw puffins on the cliff, and I had no idea how fast they flew. Like they literally just jump off the cliff and they dive bomb down to the water or wherever they're going, and they're like little bullets. It's actually quite amusing, and they're just a delight to watch, and they're cute as buttons. Yeah, so puffin, I guess. I don't know how you keep puffin, but
No, but they are adorable.
they are. They're just so cute.
Yeah, and it's almost like a mix between like a penguin and a parrot, kind of like
Yes.
the beak.
Yes,
It
a
has
penguin and a parrot, exactly.
Yeah, and it's because the body kind of looks, from the neck down, a little penguinish, and
Yep.
then the face a little bit more of a parrot, especially because their beaks are nice and colorful.
Yes, very bright. Yes.
Yeah. So
Yeah. And if it had to be something more realistic, then I'd say a goat,
goats,
because they're amusing.
they are, and they're so cute when they're babies.
Yes.
Yeah. They
Yeah, all
trot.
those TikTok videos where you hear them clomping across the floor, that ba-dum, 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 ba-dum. Oh my God, I'm rolling on the floor laughing. It just gets me every time. I'm so easily amused, it's pathetic.
No, it's good. There's one TikToker that I think has like a farm and has a bunch of goats, and he's like way, way far away. And he's like, "Do you hear that?" As he's getting closer, he's like, "Yep, that's still them." And it's about feeding time. And so he opens up the gates from the barn where they're all at, and they go specifically to where they're fed. And the next the next little scene on the video is them all eating, but they're wagging their tails in excitement and happiness. And it's like, oh my God, that is so cute, and
Yes,
that
I've seen that video, and it's like dogs with the tails. They just, and they're like the little metronomes, boop, 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 back and forth.
Yeah,
very funny.
It is, but at the same time I'm going, oh, to get this excited about food. I suffer from something like I don't normally get cravings for foods, and I know that drives everybody in the house crazy, because like, what do you want to eat? I don't know. What do you? And it's because I don't really care. I don't have a craving. Very rarely will I have that sounds really good, like for myself, unless you mention it, that's different.
Yes.
So to be that excited about food, like, because you know what you want, that would be so nice.
Yes, exactly.
My goats are cute, but again, the puffins are also cute too. What is your favorite word?
It's actually the name of a place, and it's my favorite because I heard somebody from Miss America or Miss Universe pageant say it in the proper way from her native country, and the word is Nicaragua. I just love the way it came off her lips, the way she pronounced. I mean, anybody else would just say Nicaragua, which sounds pretty boring, but when you hear the way she said it, I was like, that is so gorgeous.
Yes, definitely.
It kind of rolls off your tongue. So yeah, like Spanish, I think is a really beautiful language. I wish I knew it. Yeah. So
Nicaragua, got it.
Nicaragua, yeah.
Nice. And that's not, and usually, it's because of the native speakers. I had the same thing when it, like Italian words or other things like that, where it's not native to my English or my Spanish. There's still certain words I'm going, say that again, and it's just like, wow, okay. But also the accents.
I know. When we speak English and we try to pronounce a foreign word, such as something in Italian or Spanish, we brutalize it. We take all the sex out of it. We do. We take all the sex out of it. Nicaragua versus Nicaragua. Very different, very sexy.
Exoticness. Yes, it's all that thing. Yeah.
Yes.
It happens. What is your favorite curse word?
Oh yeah, the F-bomb. I definitely say that word an awful lot. I laugh at Carrie Wallace. I jokingly call her my next door neighbor, but even though she lives in the Midwest United States and I'm on the West Coast of Canada, she is my neighbor in spirit, because for her, everything is fuck this and fuck that. And I can't tell you how many times I say that under my breath to myself while I'm working on something. And I'm just in here cussing to myself. And my husband walks past the office door and he's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Oh, fuck off." I'm busy. So the the F word, unfortunately, is the one that comes out of my mouth most easily. And it's not very elegant and it's not very polite, but that's my private space. That's everybody has their thing, right?
Yes, no, they do. And also and again, with any language, there are certain words that are significantly seen less as a quote unquote, curse word versus a normal part of the dialect and conversation. And
yeah.
And I think, when it comes down to it, I usually tend to watch my F-bombs more or less when there's little ones around.
Oh yeah,
but other
definitely.
than that, it's a free-for-all.
Yeah, I know. I agree. Like in a certain company, I'll know whether I can tell right away whether that is an appropriate response to anything or not, and I will, change my speech patterns accordingly. But in my own home, yes, that word gets thrown around an awful lot. I think I have that wallpapered somewhere. One of the rooms.
Well, it's such a good word. It's such a good word. I mean, you can use it as an adjective. Yeah. I mean, noun, adjective, pronoun. I mean, and the emphasis, whether it's on the first two syllables or the middle, or if you're doing like a Joe Arden and you're extending it, it's just all different options. Yep. And all the narrators have their own little thing with that word that we're going, okay, now you say it. Okay, now you say it. And it's so different. It's like, and it just hits differently too.
Yes. Yeah. Some put a lot of emphasis on the U, and some put a lot of emphasis on the F, and some put a lot of emphasis on the CK part. It depends on how they're enunciating it.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's the "Are you fucking kidding me?" and "What the fuck is this about?" I think are probably the most common phrases out of my mouth.
Okay. Yeah. For fuck's sakes has been my lately.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And then similar to you, like, are you fucking kidding me? Are the two. And I'm like going, what the forget it.
It's a fun word, let's face it.
It is. And then you can start messing around with it, because even I know it's not any word, but I know it's been more popular, like the fuckery of it all.
Yes.
It's just it's another thing again that goes back to like the original roots, and it's just like really nice. So
yeah, and I had to go through my last book, and I probably eliminated about 80 or 90 instances of the word fuck.
Yeah.
And there's still a lot of F words in that book. Mind you, it's about roadies and rock and roll, so that's just natural conversation for them. But even after I read it back when it came back from the editor the first time, I'm like, yeah, maybe there is just a few too many of those in there. And so it was really hard to weed them out, because they're very passionate conversations, and that usually where those words come into play.
Yep. No, it's hard. And I know sometimes the authors get dinged on it in reviews. Oh, there were so many bad words. And other times we will use that in order to buy the book. When it has too much sex or it has too many profanity, we're going, sold. So
yeah. I as long as it's relative to the character, then I don't mind. I don't mind any swear word, as long as I'm understanding that this is just what the character is like. I mean,
yeah, there's certain professions, like you were saying, rock stars, rodeos, even chefs in a kitchen. Oh my God. Between the F word and throwing the pans, that's common. That's just common. That happens.
Yeah, it's just a seasoning.
Yeah, it is. And when they're not doing it, you start worrying. You're going, oh, where did we fuck up? Because we're not damn thing out of the chefs today. So yeah.
That's funny.
For sure. Yeah. We have reached the game section of our chat today. Yeah. So if you're ready, we're going to do 2 truths and a lie, where our guest tells us 3 things about themselves, but only 2 of them are actual truths and 1's a lie. And I always like to say we, because, listeners are here with me, and hopefully playing along, get to try to figure out which one is the lie.
Okay.
Okay.
So you want me to start my first one?
Yeah, you'll just tell us all 3 things, and then we'll reiterate, and then I have to figure that out, which one's, the lie.
Okay, let me think for a second. Okay, my grandfather could easily have been mistaken for George Burns. Let's see, a second one. I think it was 2004, might have been earlier or later, that remember the World Idol Championships? Well, the guy that won, Kurt Nilsson, he's my cousin. And let's see. Oh, I was born with 2 thumbs on my left hand. What do you think?
Oh, fuck. Oh my goodness. Ugh. There you go. Wow. You've made this one difficult, which is great, as it should be, it's supposed to be that kind of a thing. And also you were playing around with it, like, let me think about that and how I'm just going to tell you. Yeah, let's see. Ooh, dang. Born with 2 thumbs on your left hand.
You think that's the lie?
I think that's the lie.
That's the truth.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, polydactylism. My extra thumb grew out of the like, my hand looks normal if you look at it, but if I point it out, you'll see that it's actually an extra finger and not really a thumb, but it's in the thumb position. Yeah. So it's called polydactylism. My great uncle had it, so it seems to skip a generation.
Okay, so now we're left with your grandfather easily been mistaken for George Burns, or 2004, give or take, your cousin was the winner of the champion of a idol competition.
Yeah.
I remember George Burns. That's possible. But that's still, who knows? So I'm gonna go with George Burns being truth.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so your cousin was a lie.
Yes. We share the same last name, but we're not related.
Oh, see, when that happens, everybody's like, "Oh, are you guys related?" Yeah.
Kurt Nilsson. Yeah. He beat out Kelly Clarkson, believe it or not, in that competition, which is surprising because I really thought Kelly would win. Yeah, no, both amazing singers. That's for sure.
Yeah. So did your grandfather get said a lot, hey, you look like George Burns, or is that more something that you're seeing?
Yeah, it was because none of us look like him at all. He looked like he could be a jockey. So he's a smaller guy, and had the same kind of wrinkly face and haircut as George Burns. And he used to wear my grandmother's reading glasses, which were circular, round glasses. So when he put those on, he totally looked like George Burns.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. He was too cheap to buy his own pair of reading glasses. He just borrowed hers.
But you know what? I think honestly that was a generational thing, because I mean I've seen it in movies. I've seen it with my grandparents, and it was just one of those things that it was just like out of convenience. They would just grab each other's glasses, and I'm going, no.
I couldn't grab my husband's glasses. His eyesight is completely different from mine. It's like the opposite. So
yeah, exactly. Same thing with mine. My prescription is almost like it's bad. It's bad.
Yeah, I would trip over my own face if I wore my husband's glasses.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, thank you for sharing all that with us. And I bet I got it on the second try.
That's true.
Yeah. So we'll see the listeners will have to tell us what they thought was the lie and their 2 truths, and see how well they did, and we'll go from there.
Right.
So before we go, Sandra, why don't you tell us what's currently either what you're working on or what's coming out next? What can you tell us so we can write it down?
Oh, okay. So I have one book that's not quite finished yet, and that one's going to the editor soon, and that one's called The Companion. But the release that just came out in paperback and ebook, which is coming out this summer in audiobook, is From Bridges to Breakdowns, and that's a rock romance. And so the narrators for that one, that's Jacob Morgan plays the lead. Ava Lucas is his love interest. Then we have new to me narrator Stephen Dexter, who's going to play the rock star. And he's also going to be doing the singing. And then we also have Dane Anderson filling in with several voices as a bunch of all the little side characters.
Cool.
So that one's exciting. I'm really excited about that one. So we've got 4 narrators. It's a good multicast.
Yeah.
And then of course we talked about Dane Anderson voicing for Luke. for Rain on a Tin Roof. So that's the next one that's going to come out. It's probably released around the same time, actually, as From Bridges to Breakdowns. So other than that, that's the projects I have on the go. I have lots of ideas. Like I said, the Irish project. But those things are still ideas. Not quite ready to pen those yet.
Cool. Well, thank you for sharing with us. And I'm excited about that title, especially with so many narrators. Those are always fun.
Yeah. And the story behind that actually is I used to do interviews with local rock bands, indie bands, with a friend of mine. And one of the bands we interviewed was called Bridges and Breakdowns. That was the name of the band. And I always thought that was a fantastic name for a rock band. Unfortunately, they have disbanded and they've gone their own way in their lives and stuff. But that name always stuck with me. So when I decided to write a rock romance, I thought, oh, Bridges and Breakdowns. Oh, how about From Bridges to Breakdowns? And then the story is about how that happens. So I've actually put a note inside the book giving them credit for my inspiration for the title. So that's where that came from.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again for sharing all that information and being my guest for this year's Audiobook Lovin Series.
Oh no, I this was too much fun, and I talked too much and I coughed too much, and hopefully I can get rid of this cough. I'm hoping to quit smoking soon, but yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed this, and if you ever need someone to cough on your program again, you're welcome to call me up.
God, I will definitely be bringing you back, but not for that.
No, okay. Well,
no. But we do know that if we do know if we ever need to have like a clip of that, we might be able to reach out to you. But no, I don't think that would be necessary. But no, definitely, this has been great. As lots of fun, lots of learning new things and stuff like that. And I love that about these chats. So that's great. So thank you again.
No, well, thank you. Yeah. I really enjoyed this, and yeah, I can't wait to hear how badly I sound in the interview when you finally release it.
Everyone, thank you for hanging out with us today, and we hope you've enjoyed this episode as well as the series. And until next time, happy listenings.
The Audiobook Lovin podcast has special Patreon incentives. Join today to receive early access to podcast episodes, exclusive content with our guests, and much more. Support the podcast by becoming a Patreon at www.patreon.com/audiobooklovin. Thank you for your support. Thank you for joining us on the Audiobook Lovin Series, hosted by Viviana, Enchantress of Books. We hope you have enjoyed this episode as well as the series. We've included audio samples of our guests' work within the post for you to check out. Please make sure to visit the main page, link within the post, to learn more about the series, the authors, and the narrators. Please consider leaving a review wherever you listen to this series if you enjoyed today's episode. Make sure to follow us on our social media platforms and subscribe to the Viviana, Enchantress of Books newsletter. Until next time, happy listening. Audiobook Lovin hopes you've enjoyed this program.